response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought?
And welcome to the show today, your Author Brand Show. You're going to want to take notes, even if there's not a single rational thought here. But there will be, of course. That's just a joke I like to play before the show to see what my guest is, paying attention. Like, is he talking about me? It's like, no, of course not. We're not talking about you. We're talking about the other guy. But it's supposed to, make it light. So our guest today, let me give you a little intro on our guest. Boy, I'm so excited to talk to this guy because it's stuff you've never heard before. I promise you that. And it's things that will maybe surprise you, maybe shock you, but most importantly, you probably could use if you want to be looking at a career. So he is the founder of Kadima Careers. His mission is pretty bold. It's pretty big, which I love big goals, right? To accelerate 1 million careers by 2040. And this guy knows what he's talking about. He's no slouch. Graduate of Columbia Business School, spent 30 years, I don't know how, because he looks like he's 40, 30 years as a successful leader at Google, Meta, Salesforce, American Express. He went from manager to director to VP to global department head in about 10 years. So he's received Google's Manager of the Year award, and he left his last corporate job at Salesforce, making over $500,000. So he's a player, right? But today his whole company is really designed around helping the underrepresented, underestimated, underpaid talent land great jobs at companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Spotify, Salesforce, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever. The list goes on and on. The Fortune 100, guys. And he's spoken at like MIT, Columbia Business School, Blacks in Tech, Sistas in Sales, AnitaB.org. But he works with people one-on-one every single day to accelerate their careers. And, his private clients on average, they increase their annual compensation. Check this out. Increase as a delta. And this is not their compensation. This is the increase they are realizing from his work. $109,000 increase within 6 months of his coaching. So imagine you're looking at like a $250,000 job. And because of what this guy can teach us today, you're walking in making, $359 on average, maybe $340, whatever it is. It's more than what you'd have gotten had you not worked with him. So I could go on about his credentials. I prefer just to listen to him so we can learn something. Welcome to the show today, Mr. Alan Stein. How you doing there?
Thank you so much, Doug, for having me on the show. You did a hell of a lot better job of introducing me than I would myself. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm excited about this. We've spoken before, so I'm cheating, of course, but we didn't get as much details as I want to get in today. And to keep people poised for this, because whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you're going to either hire somebody or be hired. So this is relevant information. And man, I want people to stick around for one reason. That reason, well, you tell us why. Why should they stick around and listen to us today?
They should stick around because I'm going to tell the whole truth, nothing but the whole truth, and how the job search actually works.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm guessing most people are still like having a resume sent out blind to a bunch of people and just casting their bread upon the water type of thing.
People do that all the time. They think that they need to optimize their resume. They think that they need to drop all these keywords in. They think that they need to update their LinkedIn profile for the 18th time. Yeah. All that stuff is nice, but that's not going to make or break your career search.
Right. Okay. So we're going to get to the magic sauce here, the undercover stuff here in a minute. Let's start with your background. When you're working at these big companies, what was going on in your mind? I want to know what the switch was from being, a high-paid employee to saying, "Oh, I need to help these people out." What was the moment there for you?
Yeah, I don't know if there was an exact moment, but I was always someone. I was not a recruiter. I was not in talent acquisition, but I always cared about acquiring talent for my team and hiring and growing and developing talent. So I would always be the one raising my hand to do on-campus recruiting, to get involved with a lot of diversity initiatives and acquiring diverse talent. It's just something that I know. I have a psych background. I worked in, I was going for a PhD in clinical psychology. I like how the mind thinks.
Yeah.
And the interview process is very impure. Career acquisition, like getting people jobs, is very inefficient and not done properly. Yeah. And there's ways that people can influence it. And I just like helping people. When I was at Google, I got 9 people in through Google. Part of it was my own good desire to
Mhm.
help people out, but it wasn't too shabby also for Google to pay me $4,000 a hire as an employee referral bonus.
Wow, that's not bad. Okay. I'm gonna get right to it. I was so cool to hear you talk about the job that you actually, even though you're independent, you're an entrepreneur, but you went ahead and applied for a job and sort of documented everything and got a really sexy offer. Tell me as much as you can or want to about that process and who it was. I think it was just fascinating.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Robert Cialdini, who wrote the book
Mhm.
Influence, before
Sure.
he wrote that book, which is a seminal book on the 7 laws or the 7 principles that influence people,
Yeah.
he actually went undercover, or I don't know if it was undercover or field research, and he worked in sales roles as a used car salesman, I think selling knives,
Yeah.
selling lots of different things to understand how it worked. So that partly influenced me, little meta there, to do a lot of research
Mhm.
before I went off and launched Kadima. Even though I knew a lot about the job search, I started getting applications out there. I submitted 300 applications. I got
Wow.
47 interviews. I made it to the final round 20 times. I got 5 offers. And I started recording these interviews.
Hold on a second. Let's go with those numbers real quick. 300 applications,
Yep.
47 interviews, and
Yep.
5 offers.
5 offers, 20 final rounds. And then of the 20 final rounds, I got 5 offers, which is a little bit below index of what I do with my
Okay,
clients.
yeah, well, your research phase. It's okay. Yeah,
Um, so I was like a 1 out of 4 once I got to the finals. But when you're in
yeah,
the finals, you're usually competing with 3 to 5 people. So it's not absurd numbers at that stage.
right. And let people know what level we're talking here, because I think that's important to know.
Yeah, levels are murky because I went from a director at American Express to a manager at Google,
Uh-huh.
which sounds less impressive, but I went up
Right,
by $62,000. So I
right,
don't give a crap about levels, but I
great.
was interviewing for jobs in the 500 to the 400 to $700,000 range for myself.
Wow, nice. And you got 5 offers though. You could have taken them all and then outsourced it, right? Made a couple $1 million a year. And
I I did think about one of the offers of not outsourcing it, but
yeah,
taking it and working with Kadima on the side and just waiting until I got fired until I realized that I wasn't doing the work,
yeah.
but I wound up not doing that.
Yeah, it's a matter of integrity, right? I mean, you can take your research so far, and all of a sudden you're like, "I'm the drug informant. I'm doing drugs." You know, it's probably
Yeah.
not a good idea. Wow. Okay, so you documented this for research purposes, got some offers, and I want to get right to this. What did you discover? What were some of the key things that were surprising to you, and being on both sides of the coin now, as an employer and as a candidate?
So there really wasn't too much that was surprising to me because
Mhm.
I was doing this research just to make sure that my thoughts and perspectives and hypotheses weren't
Right.
off.
Yeah.
Well, some things that surprised me was how easy it is to deflect the conversation about compensation. So it's
Wow.
something that's easy to do, and so many candidates mess it up because when you, as a candidate, reveal your cards to the employer
Right.
about how much money you're seeking, you are working with an asymmetry of information. The company knows what they're going to pay you, they know what other people on that team make, they know what that region makes.
Yep.
You have very little idea, despite the ability for you to do research on Glassdoor
Yeah.
or Comparably or whatever. And by you revealing that information, you often shoot yourself in the foot later on in negotiating.
Hmm.
And I tried applying some of my tactics to defer and deflect the conversation about comp.
Yeah.
It worked every time.
Give me an example. I'm the employer. Say, okay, geez, Alan here. Your resume looks great. I'm very interested in that. What's your salary history? What are you looking for here?
Well, first off, you can't ask for salary history in most
Okay,
states.
whatever.
So,
How they
so
phrase it
if you were
nowadays?
interviewing people, you wouldn't ask that question.
Okay.
But if you were asked, like, if you were to ask that, the way
Yeah.
I would return that
Well,
is
back me up. How do they ask it so it's
so.
compliant or whatever?
So they'll ask what compensation you're seeking or what
Okay.
sort of salary you're
More
seeking.
direct. All
If
right.
they're doing it compliant, and not everyone does it compliant, by the way,
Yeah.
but that's what they should be doing.
Understood.
But if you were to ask that question, I would be like, "Hey, Doug, I really, I just want to get paid fairly and
Hmm.
in line with the scope and impact of the role," and that will shut 80% of people up.
Okay.
And if you go further,
Yeah.
the second response is, "Hey, Doug, I've read lots about you. You've developed a great brand with your business, and
Right.
I'm just really excited to work there. Compensation's not going to get in the way. And in 15% of the time, if it like that will cut down another 15%. So then you're dealing with 5%.
Right.
That 5%, if you continue to press me, which often it doesn't happen, but if you're like, hey, Alan, I need to know what sort of comp you're seeking,
Yeah.
you'll be like, Doug, I'm not really familiar with how you compensate employees here. Can you talk to me a little bit about your philosophy and how you pay people? Then I'll jot down some notes.
Right.
And I'll say, oh, that's different than how Salesforce compensated me. Let me think about that and I'll get back to you.
So now, can we just break down the psychology of the second statement? Because I love you. You didn't just deflect; you complimented inside of deflection. I caught that. That was really smart.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
compensation. Don't worry about that. I'm more interested in being your best, your best employee. Right? It was brilliant.
Well, it goes back to Influence, which is the
Right.
book that influenced me.
Mm-hmm.
Because the interview process is so impure, they are looking for people that are capable, but then there's a lot of art. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, does Doug like me? Are we talking about like beers that we like to drink on the weekend, or do we have some sort of commonality or something like that? Do I seem like someone that you feel comfortable managing?
Right.
Which leads to actually a lot of
Mm-hmm.
lack of diversity, which
Yeah.
is another point, but
Another
there are
problem,
ways to
right.
overcome that. But
Right.
people wind up liking people like themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty. It's neuroscience 101 on that one.
Yeah.
All right. So that's one thing you can do, obviously, to deflect the salary question. Give me another trick or tip to get in front of the line with all those many people applying, or competition, especially some really in demand positions. How do you get in the front of the line there?
You cut 7% of applications come in through the referral channel, and yet
Right.
40% of hires come in through a referral.
Wow.
In my case, I've had 29 jobs in my career. 24 of those doors were opened because somebody said, hey, Alan's a decent guy. You should chat with him.
Yeah.
It did not mean that I was able to pass without an interview. In the case of Google, I got a referral there, and I still had to go through 11 rounds of interviews there, and I had to prepare, and it was not a done deal by the time I got through.
Yeah.
But the 5 previous times that I applied to Google, which frankly I was a better fit for those 5 roles,
Wow.
I did not get a response for 3 of them, and 2 of them I got quick rejections.
Right. So yeah, good old boys network, or the referral. I love that. So 40% of the time it's referral, and what's the first number? 7.
Only 7% of people
7%
apply through
apply.
referral, because otherwise
Wow.
people are applying through cold application
Yeah.
or getting recruited, or maybe on campus hiring if they go to a good school that these
Right.
companies are seeking. But only 7% of people leverage
Yeah.
referrals to get their application in.
So let's say the person is a newish MBA graduate, worked somewhere for a year or two, knows he's worth more than he's getting paid, and wants to break into something bigger. Doesn't have a big network. How do you get referrals when you're kind of new in the world?
So this is how you do it. I call this a growth framework. First, you clearly establish goals of what's important for you, what values mean something, like what values resonate with you, and then define the list of organizations that could potentially get that for you. So figure out a list of target companies or organizations, starting with at least 40. The second part is realistically leverage your strength. But then the third part is outreach. So you want to get outreach. You want to build relationships, not in a transactional way, but build relationships with people. So if American Express is on your target list, or Tesla is on your target list, let's say Tesla, you do not want to reach out to Elon Musk, not only because the guy's a loose cannon, but he's not going to reply to you.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to work at Tesla, what I would do is I would look at people that went to my undergrad university, Binghamton University, people that went to my business school, Columbia Business School, people that worked with me prior at American Express or at Google, or people that have some sort of commonality with me. Maybe like they volunteer for the ASPCA. Like I don't do that, but say I did.
Yeah.
Any commonality you reach out to and you start building the relationship and you have conversations, and there are a lot of people that are willing to help you out and give you advice. And it's shocking how often it occurs and how few people do it.
It is, I've been fortunate enough to actually produce some books for some pretty successful people. We're talking, 9, 10-figure people. And they, all of them, without any question, all of them say their network is their net worth.
Yep.
And it's, money comes and goes, but a relationship that you build, especially like you said, non-transactional, right? Don't expect to, hey, if I give me this, I'll give you that. That's just, I'm sorry, my opinion, it's kind of sleazy, and you probably won't get as far if you just make friends with people and say, hey, I'm looking for a job, maybe a new opportunity in the future, but right now, how you doing? And we both share that interest, or however, you could probably have specific ways to talk to people, right, in your program.
Totally. And that's like even how our relationship has been built. Like I first reached out to you for you are someone that can make people really famous and popular with their books. And you and I have talked about that, and we will work together at some point, but we've built this relationship across the time. So yes, you can do that. And especially if you use some basic techniques, if you read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you read Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone.
Yep.
You read those, like just read Dale Carnegie's book and you're fine. But if you want, like,
I will say this, I'm just talking about myself for a moment. It's my show. So I was in high school, I was like, second to last pick of gym class, introvert, just one of those people that in the background. And I enrolled in junior achievement after school, like how to run a business thing. And they gave away a free class from Dale Carnegie on speaking and self-confidence, whatnot. And it shaped my personality. I mean, I became like, president of class, homecoming king, all this jazz. But you cannot overstate how important that book still is today. He does a lot of, people in the VC world might not agree with all the rapport building thing, just get to the chase. But in terms of building your network, it's human nature is pretty much unchanged in that regard, I think. And building those connections and applying even half of what that book has. I try to read it once a year, probably every 2 or 3 years. I need to reread it because, like another human nature thing, I slip, get excited sometimes and forget to just relax and get to know somebody. So yeah, it's a wonderful book. I love it.
And it's interesting. You mentioned the VC world of being more transactional. That's actually not the case. So one of my 29 jobs I had was in venture capital, and our fund did not do well because we were not as networked as Sequoia, as A16Z, as all these big organizations. And
I'm thinking of the pitch process, maybe.
Yeah. The pitch process.
The pitch process. They don't want to hear your origins. I mean, a little origin story for like 30 seconds and get to the money, right? But yeah, in terms of the deal flow, whatnot, you're right. It's going to be networking there for sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
But if someone comes in as a proposed deal and they came well referred by someone in my network, I would consider them a hell of a lot more than someone that just put their pitch deck on my desk and out of the blue.
As a matter of fact, one of our great clients just did his first SPAC, special purpose acquisition company. For those who don't know what that is, where he goes and raises money for a company he doesn't know he's going to buy yet. Hey, we're going to set aside this money. He was going to raise $233 million because I'm going to put your money, this escrow account, and we're going to go buy something. And like, who's going to do this, right? Who is going to put money into something not knowing what it is yet? Punchline is $1 billion came into this fund because of who he was and his network. And he could only use a quarter of it for this first company that they purchased. I mean, if that's not evidence of your network is your net worth, I don't know what is. To have.
And the other critical factor is you are not set in the network that you are born into. So it definitely influences it, but you can get out of there. So like when I got the job at Google originally, I had no connections at Google. I had like 2. Now I have like 700 connections at Google. Partly I work there. But you can build those that network out, and you can be deliberate about it of where you want to go and try to build that network to where you want to go, not where you've been.
That is so incredible. I've kind of done that accidentally, but not intentionally, I think, in my business. But that bears repeating, folks. No matter what your network is, you don't have to stay there. This is not the caste system. You can break out and go meet other people. And I think that's probably one of the other things you said, Alan, which is really powerful, is like, don't be afraid to ask. We're doing a book for another guy who did a startup. You know, it just like most people was, scrapping and struggling to get his first 20, 30 grand in. He sold it for $120 million 3 years later. And I'm
Wow.
interviewing for his book going, how did you go from 40 grand to 120 million in 3 years? And during the interview process, we're going through his journey, what he did. And every single decision, question, something came up. Well, let me ask about that one. He'll be asking his community of VCs and other startups and people that his mentors and whatnot. But even if it was a question he knew the answer to, he would still ask. Sometimes to validate, sometimes just for the connection to let him know what's going on. Right? He's sneaky that way. But
Yeah.
don't be afraid to reach out to somebody that's out of your circle and higher status, I guess. Is that right?
Like higher status or just where you want to be. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be higher status. So if you're trying to reach out to somebody at Apple,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be Tim Cook.
Yeah.
You can reach out to somebody who's like a first year from there.
Right.
And they may not be able to pull all the levers for you, but they can give you insight and they can
Yeah.
make a referral just as much as, well, if Tim Cook was referring you, you would definitely get an interview.
Yeah.
If someone like that was 1 year into Apple, they may have to do a little harder work to make sure that you get noticed. But
Right.
yeah, you don't need to you don't need to just go for the top, but go be cognizant of where you're trying to build your relationships out
Right.
into areas of where you want to learn, grow, and go to.
Yeah, we can just stop the show right there. That's all I need to know. If you want to be successful in life, this is what you need to do: is make new friends, or just
Like
unless your friends are doing well. I mean, just go
Yeah.
to where you want to go. Right?
I think Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or something like that. So you can spend so not to say that I want to toss away my wife and my 3 kids, and and I don't know who the 5th person would be, but
Don't
no, like
put me in there, man.
no, like, but they inform me, yeah, but you are the
Yeah.
average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Well, I want to hang out with you more because you get these big, fat offers and stuff. You're, playing with the big boys there with your $500,000 job offers. That's great.
Well, I turned it down to become a struggling entrepreneur, so I
I
know how to
realized
grind.
that. Was
Yeah.
that a hard decision? Was that like, oh shoot?
It was, I was trying to milk my comp as long as possible
Yeah.
while I was doing this side hustle, and
Right.
it started to be more and more of a conflict where,
Yeah.
yeah, it was becoming conflict of time, conflict of stress, conflict
Yeah.
of other conflict. So
Mhm.
I basically negotiated my exit, and when they got to the price point that I was willing to leave at, I decided to leave.
Okay. Let's spend the last few minutes on that because a lot of people listen to the show and people contact me to to help them on that new road of entrepreneurship or consultancy are leaving a corporate environment. And some people call them golden handcuffs. Whatever. There's a lot of security with that salary paycheck. And to go off on your own, you need a little runway of something to go on. Do you have any like thoughts or tips or process you did other than I know they gave you a little severance or something when you left or what?
Yeah, I negotiated a nice exit package for myself.
Okay.
Another thing, when I was working in the corporate world, I focused on high-paying companies that would pay me what I was worth, if not more than what I was worth,
Yeah.
and I was able to sock away a lot of money in retirement accounts.
Smart.
I anticipated that to be spent in my retirement, but I've actually wound up drawing down a significant chunk to start
Yeah.
my business. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like when you are in a space of largesse where you have excess,
Yep.
sock it away, save it up. Don't spend it like crazy. Like, granted, I went on some nice vacations and didn't
Yeah.
live like a pauper, but I maxed out all my retirement savings, which now is funding my business.
Right. And that's probably a really strong lesson for that mindset a piece of like, okay, that was my retirement, but I'm going to suggest, or you can use your own words, but like, that was my retirement then. This is my retirement now with your business, right? I mean, it's just transferring the wealth, really.
It's part that, and also like I'm married to a wife who has a steady stream of income.
Nice.
So that also played into my factor. Like, so we get insurance and benefits through my wife, Melanie.
Oh, great.
And a steady stream of income so we can pay our mortgage and things like that.
Yeah.
so that also played in the decision. If
Right.
I wasn't married, or if I didn't have that stability, or I didn't have those benefits, I might have made different decisions.
Yeah, it's not easy. I've worked for companies and but I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, so I'm kind of used to the you know, eat or be eaten type of
Yeah.
thing. It's okay. Well, if I don't serve somebody this week, and I'm not going to get paid, so I got to only make sure I'm doing something right
Yeah,
to pull it
exactly.
off. Yeah, that's
But,
great.
and people think you don't have a boss as an entrepreneur, but you do have a boss. All your customers are your bosses.
That's so. Are you listening in our company meetings? We just talked about that on Tuesday in our company meeting. We're like, yeah, you guys, because we have a small team, like 7 people at our production team. Like, the only boss you have is not me. The only boss you have is a customer.
Yeah.
Because I try to give cross training so they all can do various jobs at the company and whatnot. So that's.
Well, I can't wait to be your boss one day.
Oh man, I look forward to it. We're gonna have fun doing this book. I can tell you. I want to get the spill of beans on the one thing you did with a company that starts with the letter A.
Yeah.
But documenting that whole process, very specifically, it's like being a fly in the wall. Really, it's really going to be good. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have lots of good stuff to share. I'm looking forward to doing that with you and your company.
Can't wait. In the meantime, if you are looking to get a really good high-paying job, don't just toss your resume out there. Don't just network blindly. Contact Alan because he knows what he's talking about, obviously, by getting people an extra 100 grand from what they're expecting. That's
and not to correct you, but I will correct you. We're up to $122,500 incremental, and in 3.73 months. So
see, it's easier for me to say 3 months. It's easier for me to say 100 grand.
Yeah.
That way we under promise and over deliver. See how it works? Yeah, you know.
Exactly.
You're gonna get somebody complaining. I only got 121. I didn't get 122,000.
So first off, that's average. So like I don't guarantee that, but I do have a 30-day money back guarantee on all our products, and almost no one takes us up on that.
Okay. How do people get a hold of you?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you can go to kadimacareers.com and check out everything. And we also have a podcast. I'd love to have you on at some point, Doug. We have the Sick Career Podcast. It's the SYCK Career Podcast. And I have lots of interesting, diverse, successful individuals where we talk about their careers and how they went up, down, and all over the place.
My career was short-lived at Nextel. I was just there for, I think, I've never had a job more than 1.5 years in my life, but we can talk about the entrepreneurial career, of course. I got plenty of stories there.
That's a career too. You know, like as long as people are being cognizant and conscious about their decisions and what the pros and cons are, there's multiple different paths for people to take.
Terrific, terrific. Okay, so contact Alan on LinkedIn. His profile is down here in the show notes. Click on that. Be polite. Request him, and if you're looking to increase your career, he is the only person you need to talk to get that going. So thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate the time. Appreciate what you do.
You bet. All right. See you later. That concludes the show for today. You're going to want to take notes at the Author Brand Show. If you didn't take notes, that's okay because the show notes are right below. All you do is click on that and we'll send them to you. You can contact Alan, of course, and get some good career advice. Or if you're looking to hire somebody, probably got some tips there for you as well. Have a great day and we'll see you next time.